Good evening, folks. This is Andy Pedraza with Special Effects Academy, and we are on the start of the week session in the Forex trading room for June 27th of 2021. We will be going through our regular agenda. I'll look at the prior week's results, our currency strength meter, fundamental announcements scheduled, a look at the major pairs on the daily charts, any setups we see in progress, and a few words in conclusion. Starting with the ledgers, we had a bit of a recovery on the long term as at least one really good trade closed out at profit, that pound JPY. We did open 4 trades this week. 3 of them were still open when the market closed on Friday. As I mentioned, we took a nice chunk of profit, almost 200 pips on a 1 mini lot position on the pound JPY, which boosted us back above positive territory. And of course, we have high hopes to continue in that direction yet again. Trading is always a zigzag. It just can't or won't, or you can't make it go in one direction. There is nothing guaranteed in trading, and we make of it what we will, and sometimes that means you will go backwards in your results. So this is perfectly normal, and so is the recovery. The intermediate ledger, flat for the week. We had, I think, 2 trades close out, and they pretty much canceled each other out. The only trade that we opened this week that did close out was the pound Aussie. We took a very small hit, and we also took profit on another trade from earlier at around the same level. So the difference is pretty much the swap. Otherwise, there was no change in the intermediate. And for the short-term ledger, we did open 4 trades, 2 of which closed at profit, and the profits were higher than the losers. So we did get a bit of an uptick on the week. Notes and opportunities for improvement. We are seeing a bumpy sideways market almost across the board, but there are some pairs that are still trending. Notably, the pound pairs, though some of them have started going sideways or doing a bit of a retracement, there are at least a couple of them that are still moving with some direction. And you can feel the tension just beneath the surface. It looks like the market is just waiting for the other shoe to drop. In particular, the dollar is in a very precarious position. I mentioned the Aussie as well as being spent out, not necessarily in retracement or reversal territory, might go sideways, but we'll see. Anyway, the market does seem very tense right now, almost across the board. Relative strength meter for the week, a little bit of a mixed bag. The Kiwi was one of the losers at the end of last week, and the dollar and the Swiss were, I guess you have to call them winners to some degree. The dollar coming off a nice recovery from the prior week. I wouldn't go that far as to call the dollar a winner right now, but the numbers are the numbers. I'm not too thrilled with this chart, or rather, I'm thrilled with the look of the chart. I'm not thrilled with where they take their numbers. So I'm going to have to replicate this chart on my own. So stay tuned for that. I'll be using this public one for the time being just to have a placeholder, but I am not thrilled with the data that's being used to generate these arrows and numbers. So again, stay tuned for that. I think they're taking just a Friday result, which will get you a little bit skewed. I want to see the actual result for the entire week. Did the euro end up higher than the pound from where it started the previous Sunday or not? Stuff like that. So again, stay tuned. A very light week on the fundamental announcements. The only thing tradable we have here is the U.S. non-farm payroll on Friday. So we'll be trading that one live, nothing else on the calendar. And with that, we jump into the charts. Oil has not stopped. It's just not even taking a breather, just making higher highs. It's now very close to crossing the $75 per barrel milestone there, or target, whatever you want to call it, threshold. So stay tuned for that. There is no weakness in oil right now. We haven't seen a boom in oil of this magnitude in quite a few years. On the currency side, as we can see, just looking at the euro dollar, those three long candles, black candles, are from the prior week. This week, while it wasn't a big mover, it did show the euro recovering somewhat against the dollar. It didn't quite make it back anywhere near where it had been the previous week before the crash there, but at least it was moving back in that direction. So dollar weakness back on the menu. Pound dollar, same thing. It recovered for most of the week from the prior week's dismal results, but Thursday into Friday, it went back down. So the pound still having trouble, still struggling against the dollar. USD JPY, no struggle here at all. The yen just is not catching a break against the dollar. It is at its highest level of resistance. If it breaks that level, there's no telling where it will go. USD Canadian probably overdue for a retrace, and the previous week certainly gave it that opportunity. So it did go all the way to an outer trend line, and then this past week it did recover somewhat, ending the week much better than where it started, but still not near its previous level of strength against the dollar. Still, it's heading in that direction. I would assume that the USD CAD will do a test of the bottom again before too long. USD Swiss hanging out mostly sideways. It did recover from the prior week, but not a whole lot, not even getting close to the halfway mark. But still, it stopped moving away from the bottom and is now hanging out. Aussie dollar, a much better recovery, almost, or maybe even perhaps halfway back up before it started retracing on Friday. And again, Fridays are normal retrace days, but it did end up much better than where it started. And the Kiwi against the dollar did the exact same thing. Not a full recovery, but certainly two of the pairs that percentage-wise recovered the most against the dollar this previous week. Moving off the dollar pairs, the Aussie CAD, a little bit of a topsy-turvy journey. It went down, it went up, it went back down. It didn't end too far from where it started the week, so a sideways, if bumpy, ride. Euro Swiss, probably the same thing. It did go up the first couple of days, then it just hung out, and on Friday it started going back down. It still ended up higher than where it started the week, but not by a whole lot. Euro pound dropping to test support yet again and bouncing off Thursday and Friday. So it is ending the week, I'm going to say, definitely higher than where it started, but still within a sideways pattern. Euro JPY, a good recovery. Not sure where the yen gained strength against the euro the previous week, but it did. And this week it went more than halfway back up. In fact, it's very close to attacking the top yet again. Euro Canadian dropping for the week, at least through Wednesday, and then going flat. Pound JPY had a very, very wonderful, beautiful recovery Monday into Wednesday, where we took a good chunk, about 200 pips worth of profit. Then Thursday, Friday, retracing back to support, but still ending the week significantly higher than where it started. Aussie JPY, pretty much the same story, except no retrace at all. So the yen definitely not catching a break against the Australian, not even slightly. Thursday, Friday went slightly flat, but still ending the week significantly higher than where it had started, and once again looking like it will attack the top. Euro New Zealand, a collapse this week as it seeks support to test. No telling where this will go, but we did have a valid breakout giving us a long entry. We did not take it. It was a little bit, I don't know, I just didn't like the look of it. But it is probably, if support holds, going to give us another buy pretty soon. Pound Canadian was dropping all week, so Canadian strength against the pound. This is one of those pairs where we had the pound retrace, hitting the resistance of that outer trend line and testing the next level of horizontal support. It's still underneath the shadow of the Kumo, the Ichimoku cloud. And while I still think this one is going to have a good chance to be traded up, and we did trade it up and take profit on two accounts, this week was just a rout, and I'm happy that we were not in this trade when the week began or indeed at any point throughout the week. We'll be very cautiously looking at what happens as the week kicks off and seeing if there is an opportunity. Pound Swiss up through Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday going back exactly where it had started the week. So no net change, but a little bit of a bumpy ride. And Pound Aussie was a rout after finally hitting the topmost level of resistance. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it just collapsed. We did take a small loss as it broke that trend line, a very small loss on the intermediate. And again, we'll wait for the next opportunity in either direction. That is it for our charts this Sunday as we kick off our trading week. Setups in progress. The pound still looking strong overall, despite some retracement. We covered that. On the dollar had a brief reprieve the previous week, and then just last week it went almost halfway back in many cases to where it had been. So dollar not out of the woods, and I still see weakness as the name of the game. The Australian is almost certainly spent, but a reversal is not guaranteed. This currency might go into a sideways, a very long-running extended sideways market. Not to say it will, but there is every possibility that that will happen before it either continues going up or does a significant retracement. The yen, of course, was all over the place, depending which currency you pick as a cross, and cannot seem to manage any sort of consistency. You can't say that it's dropping or rising. It's just doing its own different thing, depending on which currency you pair it with. And the Canadian, of course, still battling out with the other majors, but haphazardly, it is losing ground in some cases. But in the majority, it is either holding on or even improving. And that is where we are for our setups. Few words in conclusion: total losses come from a lack of risk control. As I mentioned last week, I was in the NASCAR races this weekend. I live about 3 miles from Pocono Raceway, which is where the NASCAR events in this area of the country happen. It was a blast. I enjoy these events. It was fantastic, and I wouldn't change it for the world. But I never stop thinking about trading, even when I'm having fun. So watching some of these drivers zoom at 160 plus miles per hour, while also within a fraction of an inch of bumper to bumper, it's exhilarating. Don't get me wrong. It's a very exciting thing to watch, but they're going at 160 plus miles per hour. I just could not do that. I understand why they do it. It's about cutting air drag or wind drag or whatever, so you can actually minimize gasoline consumption. You're in the next car's wind shadow. I don't care. It doesn't matter. If that lead car, the car in front, even twitches there and hits the brake slightly, I don't know what's going to happen. The car following is just going to eat the car in front or fly off to the side. I mean, the Forex market is a really high risk proposition in and of itself, but it looks as safe as trading municipal bonds or investing in municipal bonds compared to racing cars in these racetracks. So if NASCAR drivers have any sort of risk control, I certainly didn't see it this weekend displayed at all. So if I traded the way that NASCAR drivers race, I would have no money. So what's the lesson here? Don't trade that way. You have to have risk control. You cannot be dependent on what the car in front of you is going to do, which means you're not going to follow it a quarter of an inch behind or touching bumper to bumper or whatever. And there are analogies to the market. I'm not going to go into them, but I'm sure you can work them out. But again, risk control is going to be your best insurance policy as you trade. If you like these high risk things, go start racing NASCAR. It's that simple. Okay, that's going to be it for me as we end. I'm not going to ask if anybody has any questions because I am recording this off schedule because of these races I just finished mentioning. There are There were 5 races throughout the weekend covering Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I was tied up during our regular meeting hours. So this is me recording it after the fact. And thank you very much. I hope to see you guys throughout the week, those of you who are subscribers. Otherwise, enjoy your trading weeks and see you next Sunday.